Hello, everyone, and welcome to our next painting webinar. Hold on one second. Yes, so today is Friday. Okay, I got that. Today's Friday, February 4th, 2022. Thanks for joining us. We're going to start right away. And let me just kind of like switch to this really quickly. Thanks for waiting. And thanks for booking and for being here. We're excited for this new painting collection. And grateful for the wonderful response. So we love doing this bi-weekly. Now, I think it's just give us an opportunity to work on our pieces a little bit more and also to create new ones. Some people are doing more than one. So we're grateful. We just have a couple of suggestions, but first let me just say hello to Jen. How are you, Jen?
Hi, I'm great. This is making me crave all things orange, which is perfect.
You know, that's wonderful. Well, thank you so much. Yeah, and I was going to say a couple of things. Yeah, so we put some images on the shared image folder because there are many ways, as we know, many ways to approach this in regards to the way we arrange the elements. So I decided to just pick one image of an orange without being sliced or cut or anything like that, just because I thought it would be easier for me to concentrate on a single focal point. I also thought, which means that it would allow me to talk more and sort of like share more information, perhaps. I also chose an image that doesn't have any background context. So it's sort of like a flat surface without any edges. But in regards to how you pick your image, you can choose any of the images that we uploaded that we just got from Pinterest and Instagram and other places that we thought would be interesting, or you can pick your own. I know that some of you have uploaded already a personalized image, which is great. You can paint from live. If you do so, we recommend using a smaller format. So you have like a good 2-hour, if you can, 3-hour session after we finish in order to finish that piece. And what we usually do is take a picture of it and then continue with that lighting, that similar lighting. So there are several approaches and ways. Think about it. We remember doing oranges a few times. So one of them was, and I don't even know, Jen, why and what happened there, but we did the 1 cucumber, 2 orange. Right?
Yeah, I looked back. It's funny, in my photos, I was going through some photos and that came up because we did that at the gallery downtown. Yeah. And anyway, the pictures came up, but I don't know, but it was cool.
Yeah, it was cool and raunchy. I don't even remember what was the reason that I put forward. I blame myself for that one. We also did.
It was nice. It was good.
We also did rotten oranges. Do you remember when we did the rotten oranges?
No, I don't remember that.
Yeah, we did. I think it was rotten oranges or rotted oranges. I forgot the exact title, but yeah, there were oranges that were decomposing and had like this weird mold on the skin, and they were completely, yeah.
Don't remember.
I think those two are the ones that come up. But anyhow, so I'm gonna start right now and start talking about composition. And I'm gonna switch this. So I'll just try to. Okay, here we go. So I'll try. Oh, and by the way, we got some materials the other day, and we purchased finally something a little bit more formal and serious. So we purchased this acetate pad. We couldn't find this in a smaller size, but we got it. It is by, I don't even know, it's compostable. It's 100% biodegradable. So it's not plastic, even though it looks like plastic. So that's why we got it. And the reason why we got it, it's because with this assignment specifically, I feel I want to practice more the different hues of the color, because when we looked at examples in paintings, some examples had more of a flat color. And I think this could be an opportunity to study or to practice orange hues and temperature. And that's the reason why I'm going to use a full sheet of this acetate. And remember, we recommend, or we came up with this strategy just because we saw someone else doing it, that consists of using a transparent sheet in order to practice color on top of a photograph if you work from a photograph. So that's what we wanted to, and also that's the reason why I chose an image that it's super big, because it has a lot of orange, more orange than background. And my interest or the boxes that I wanted to check were multiple. Simplicity, not too much background, enough orange to practice the color and the variations from this warm yellow all the way to some reddish notes. But you have to consider your own boxes to check. And it's fun and it's nice to reflect on why you pick an image, because yeah, it just gives you an opportunity to decide what you want to paint and how you want to paint it and what's important to you. So you start having a dialogue that is conceptually important before you even lay your first mark with the charcoal. It is this kind of dialogue that you may have with an image that's going to create consistency on your work. So we invite you to have more reflections as you move forward with themes, because it may, even though we just put like different images that may have no connection, because of those reflections, there's going to be a thread, a conceptual thread that's going to be independent from the subject that you pick. All right, so enough of that nonsense. But so Jen, I found we have options of orchards to go to, orange groves.
Ooh la la. Nice.
Yeah, so I put some photos that I took. So yesterday I went to a place called Orcutt Farm.
Okay.
ORCUTT, Orcutt Farm, and it's in West somewhere. I don't remember
West
the
Hills.
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
It's close to Northridge.
Yeah, that would make sense. West Hills. Yeah.
Yes, yes. So it's an interesting place. It used to be somebody's, maybe if you want to get some information about the origins or the history, because someone lived there, someone well-known, and left the entire property, including the several homes on the property and the land, to the city of LA. It's a public park. It's such an interesting location. And there's a section of adults. They're not, they may be like historical orange trees, because there was another option nearby, the University of Northridge, that purchased a historic orange grove, and it's an open park. So, but the oranges, the orange trees, they don't look as old as this location. So yeah, and we got the go-ahead for today, and we may have also a different location as well. So I think we're going to do a few field trips, Jen, in the next few weeks. Going to orange groves. The trees were filled with oranges, so it was quite nice. So what I'm doing right now is essentially a couple of things. Because I printed this on this paper, I lowered the height, so I want to have a little bit less space right here and a little bit more on top. The image is right really close to the edge. So we talked about tangencies and what they mean and how it's important to recognize them and then decide if you want to avoid them or not. A tangency is the juxtaposition of two edges, and it could happen where edges get really close to the edge of the format, or sometimes you may have tangencies when parts of your composition align with the focal points of your composition. So sometimes, in very classic terms, avoiding tangencies on a composition is a good thing. So you avoid strange optical illusions and things that may flatten your composition. It's not a rule that we have to live by, but it's a rule that we should know and explore and see what happens, so we have the power to decide if we want to go for it or not. All right, and then I have to decide how I want it on the paper. So this is going to be how big it's going to be, and I need to decide how. I'm just going to do it. Gosh, I don't know. I feel like I want to do it off the paper. So, all right, I'm gonna actually move things around. So yeah, you know what? I'm gonna bring some scissors and cut this paper. Did you find some information about Orchid Farm or Orchid? Yeah, I think
I haven't looked yet.
Oh, okay. Oh, no,
I'll let you know.
no, that's okay. Thanks. And so, yeah, there turns out that there are other historical orange groves in LA County. And it was interesting also to read about the production of oranges. It is the most, I think the data is not new because it was like from the late 1980s, but it's the tree, the fruit tree, that it's the most produced around the world. Oranges, the most popular. I don't know about today, but at some point it was the most cultivated or harvested or produced. Or I feel also, where I grew up near a big delta, so the confluence of a huge river and the Mediterranean Sea, and because of the marsh-like quality of the land, rice was the main thing to grow. But at the same time, because of the mild climate, orange groves were also very popular. And I say where because they're not anymore. So it was nice to drive miles and miles and miles through the flat land between the river and the sea, and then see the rice fields, and also in certain parts see the orange groves. I don't know exactly the reason why oranges are not grown as much there. It's a difficult tree to grow in the sense that, you know, the things can happen. Wind can damage the oranges really easily and ruin the entire harvest. I know that the rice fields, because of the change in climate, there are people are getting sick and tired of of growing them. And I'm assuming that climate change has also something to do with oranges. So I wonder if that's one of the reasons why uh, farmers are not growing oranges in that area. And I wonder if there's anything similar in California, where it's not as popular as it used to be, or not as economically sustainable for farmers as it used to be. It's probably that. And I'm just making my measurements. Oops. So what I'm doing, I'm deciding a couple of things. In regards to the position, I wanted to lower the orange a little bit to make it a little bit closer to the bottom rather than the top, to give a little bit of space on top. And in regards to the position, I want to, initially I thought of like putting it in the center, but I'm just going to follow the same position as the photograph. So I'm measuring from the edge to the left to the orange. And then I'm going to leave the right side have much more space, this off-center area. I just feel like it's just going to be really nice. And here I go with my first circle. And then we'll realize that this is much harder than we thought. It's always like that. So notice that what I'm doing is I'm doing it piece by piece and molding it a little bit. But and I feel like also they require more water. I'm not sure exactly. My dad worked when he was younger as a farmer, and he knows more about the cycles and the water and stuff like that. And but I feel like it was always a headache. Pests and fertilizing and wind storms ruining everything. It's not easy. All right, so we also learned, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Jen, but when we went to the Heritage Square Museum, do you remember our very first outing as Roofless Painters? One of the docents there, do you remember when they were explaining the history of citrus trees in California?
Gosh, no, like what is wrong with my brain? Well, tell me what they said. Maybe that'll spark.
Yeah, and maybe I'm gonna put an article and maybe you can also read because I feel like, you know, there are different stories about this. I can find the article and
I have information on Orcutt Ranch.
Okay.
Also, I think that I worked a wedding there.
No way.
Yeah, when I looked at the pictures, I was like, wait, I've been here. And it wasn't, I wasn't attending a wedding there. I think that I was catering one.
Wow, interesting.
I mean, as a cater waiter, not like,
right.
Not get excited.
What was your memory? It looks like a nice compound.
It was really nice. I remember thinking in the back of my head of like, oh, I'm going to have to remember this place because it's not very expensive to get married here. As you know, as you said, it's a city park.
Right.
But then I must have forgotten it completely because I didn't even look at it when we were looking for places. But yeah, the history around it's pretty cool. So should I go into it or should I wait?
Yeah, if you want.
Okay. Orcutt Ranch was the vacation and retirement estate of William Warren Orcutt, an early pioneer of oil production in California. And this is where it gets cool. and the discoverer of one of the first prehistoric skeletons at the La Brea Tar Pits.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that cool? Let's see. Yeah, I remember it. So it says it's a blend of Spanish colonial revival style and mission revival style architecture and was completed in approximately 1926. It features glazed tiles from Mexico, carved mahogany and walnut from the Philippines. Mary Orcutt, William's wife, chose the symbol due to its connection with Native American traditions. Oh, I guess there's a symbol that I missed here.
Symbol. Oh, they.
Visitors are surprised to find the design of the home prominently incorporates bas relief, swastika. I don't know, that cannot be the way you pronounce that. Architectural decoration, but it's spelled like swastika. Okay. Oh, okay, no, here we go. Okay, visitors are surprised to find, that the design of the home prominently incorporates bas relief swastika architectural decoration. Mary Orcutt, William's wife, chose the symbol due to its connection with Native American traditions and did so before the Nazis turned it into a symbol of anti-Semitism and genocide.
Oh
President
my gosh.
Hoover, who was a friend of the Orcutts, visited the ranch.
Wow.
Wowza.
I would say so.
I've been to a ranch in Colorado that also had this symbol, and it is quite striking because even though it is American, of course, now we affiliate it with the Nazi Party, and they've completely, culturally appropriated this thing. But that's a totally different conversation. But anyway, Orcutt Ranch.
Okay. No, it's a big property. I talked to, there were many people working on it, meaning like rangers with different positions and jobs and stuff. There were people just like strolling the garden, and also people kind of just hanging out there. And I'll show the images later, but I put them in the folder. But the Orange Grove, it's pretty neat. It's nice. They're doing some work right now, but it's totally. I talked to the main supervisor, and we can totally go there. And I, for some reason, the page is not. Oh yeah, like here. So I'm gonna send you a link, Jen, about fruit picking or orange, the citrus. The history of citrus in California. I'm going to put it on the for everyone. Here we go. And so this is one side of the, or one history, but it was very interesting during the little presentation, I guess, before we went to the Heritage Square Museum. One of the docents was introducing the garden of the museum, I guess, the outdoor, it's an outdoor museum. And also that they have like a lot of like old homes. And they were talking about the Chinese American community having a greater role introducing the citrus cultivation in Southern California that has ever been acknowledged. And the docent was explaining that the credit essentially should go to that community, that minority, because they were the ones who were able, not only able, but forced to make a living by being farmers, because they were not allowed to live in downtown LA, which was where all the wealthy people lived at the time. There were some norms and rules by the city forbidding any minority to get a job, open a business, or rent or own a home in that area. So minorities were forced to live outside of the city. And because they couldn't be employed by anyone, they sustained themselves with growing fruits and vegetables essentially. And one of the fruits was oranges. So it's a history that I haven't been able to see anywhere else, because you can tell us based on if you can scan the article, because from what I read, there was the introduction came from the West Coast or Florida, because in the 1500s, the first people who came, the first Europeans, not even the first Europeans, because there were other Europeans that came here first. But the Spaniards, I guess, that came here, they brought oranges, and they sort of like spread the cultivation in Florida. And then it came to Southern California. So I'm not sure where everything falls into place in regards of who brought it here first, meaning the person who initiated the cultivation is credited to the monks or the friars, or the Junipero Serra, who came here and established the missions, and they brought the orange trees first. I don't know how that spread, and the Chinese American community later obviously became a major producer of oranges. And, orange is a winter fruit. It was nice also to see that Christmas decorations at some point were done with orange trees, with the leaves and the branches, that people used to put oranges in Christmas stockings as an offering and a gift. And it was part of the Christmas celebration, oranges, which is nice. I thought it was a nice, interesting story. So this is my stage so far, easy peasy. I wanted to briefly touch on shading a sphere. We talked about it months ago. I'm going to simplify it here because they're different. And maybe Jen, if you can find that diagram, they're different. There's a different nomenclature based on the different shades on a sphere in order to make it look like a three-dimensional object. It's not just like a highlight and shadow, but there's a bunch of like names for it. But essentially, I just wanted to mention the fact that sometimes the grouping of the shading of the oranges follows pretty much crescent shape. So think of like color and shade grouped together as a crescent shape, or as a diffused point in certain areas. Also consider the shadows on the ground, the point of contact. So it's just going to be depending on the light, it's going to change. But what I'm most interested in, it's not just exploring the different temperatures of orange in this image, but also how the color and the value is organized on the surface. Because I think my purpose would be to explore how to create the illusion of the fruit, the spheric quality, and maybe a little bit of the texture on the skin, but we'll see, and stuff like that. And I forgot where it was, and you don't have to find it, but I know that that was a
I found a new one. Yeah,
okay, good.
I just researched yeah, so it's cast shadow, occlusion shadow, which I think that's it's the darker one. Reflected light,
Right
core
here.
shadow,
Core shadow, it's the whole thing right here.
half tones, yep, highlight, and center light.
Maybe this is the whole highlight and this is the center light. Okay.
Voila.
Thank you so much, Jen. Thanks for breaking it down. All right, so I think I'm gonna remove this. I'm gonna start like staining. I need to prep my palettes. I didn't have time, so I'm not gonna use orange first. I'm just gonna use maybe burnt sienna and yellow ochre. That's my idea. I'll do this really quickly, but I'm gonna try to avoid using orange right off the bat. Another interesting and painterly effect of oranges, and I should say that, is the fact, I should have said that earlier, is the fact that if you bring green in the composition, orange and green are opposite tones. So it could create a very interesting dynamic between the different temperatures and being two almost complementary colors. Complementary mean opposite on the color wheel. So sometimes using complementary tones on a painting helps you create a burst of color energy that it's hard to articulate by someone who doesn't know color theory, but perception wise, it creates an effect. It's just sort of like literally, I would say it's a burst of color energy because of the opposition. So sorry if you didn't put any leaves. I should have said that earlier, but this could be, I have like this green right here. So it could be anything. And I have like a greenish cast on the orange. So I'll just give it a try with the burnt sienna and the yellow ochre because I want a neutral tone right now. I don't want to start with orange paint. And this could be also an opportunity with your help, Jen, to investigate what would be the best alternative for cadmium orange. And I think I have one already, but we could kind of like explore based on maybe the chart from Gamblin and what could be a good alternative, and also maybe just finding people's comments about it. What could be a good cadmium-free orange alternative that it's non-toxic, yeah. And anyhow, so yeah, I forgot the context and the history of the orange, the citrus in California, but based on the article that I sent, but no rush. You can just tell us a little bit later. And I have my palette ready and just gonna get my big brush. I'm gonna start staining. So to recap, I did a little bit of study of composition here and positioning the focal point, thinking of the scale, the distance between the focal point and the edges, and being intentional, finding a reason. So the more the painting process, you know, we always learn about the painting process as we paint, but certain things I feel like they require a little bit of reflection, and specifically composition. So no structural lines. Maybe the only structural line would be the little green thing, and then shading it to move away from the linear illusion and to something a little bit more three-dimensional. So I followed, even though I did it in a very simple, fast, quick way, I followed the steps or the stages that pretty much we follow when we start the painting. So I'm just gonna see what happens if I think I couldn't find, Jen, I couldn't find the palette paper. I'm using a sheet of acetate. So I wonder.
Oh, I think I have it.
Okay.
So sorry.
No. Oh, no, because I lose things all the time and I wonder if I lost it. So
no.
Okay.
Yeah, girls got it.
Oh, well, that's good. Never mind, because the acetate works really well. Actually, it's just a really good surface. So Yeah, I wasn't wrong when I imagined that a combination of burnt sienna and yellow ochre could give me a really good solid first base of color. And I need more of the solvent. I'm gonna use more solvent. Yay, that's a good color. That's a good color. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna use solvent with a little bit of paint and stain the entire, oops, the entire area. Here we go. And I start darker to lighter. So I don't have to be precise or anything like that. So start darker to lighter, and then the goal of this stage, the staining stage, is to safely transition from dry to wet, create a wet layer in which onto which we can build opacity and details and stuff like that. Prime the paper so the porous surface gets primed. And speaking of prime, the technical name or the fancy name for what we're doing right now, it's imprimatura. Imprimatura means essentially priming something. Actually, Jen, sorry, you don't have to do it. I feel like, but if you want to find the etymology of the word prime or priming,
Sure.
and see if
Like- Oh yeah, go ahead, sorry.
yeah, no, if it comes from, yeah.
Also,
Yes.
the Gamblin paint used instead of cadmium orange is called permanent orange.
Permanent orange, that's right.
Recommended on a blog, I want to say.
Recommended, sorry?
It was recommended on a blog, I want to say, maybe
Okay.
an artist blog. And then I found it on Gamblin as well.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
yeah, I will post both of these.
Awesome.
photos.
Perfect. I don't know. I think we have it. I think we had it because I remember removing the cadmium. Yeah, so it makes me happy because I remember removing the cadmium orange, and this is the Utrecht
Right.
cadmium free series, and it has a combination of 4 pigments. So it's Hansa yellow, 3 pigments, bismuth, which is a form of yellow, and pyrrole orange. So 3 pigments mixed together, and none of them contain cadmium. So,
Oh, good.
and the permanent orange, can you find out from Gamblin which pigments they use for the?
Yes, it is. I have it right here. Okay, the pigment is monoacetylene.
Okay, that's okay. Yeah, something chemical.
Yes. So it says, a description of it is a modern high key color with a purer hue and the same mass tone, but more transparent than cadmium orange.
Right, yeah.
It remains brighter in its tint when mixed with white. Painters cannot mix a secondary with the same purity of this hue orange. When you use it thinly, a rich glowing glaze is created. And so it's monoacetylene. The vehicle is alkali refined linseed oil. The light fastness is 1. Semi-transparent, series 3.
Okay. but they don't name there's only one pigment.
Only one pigment. PO62.
What's the code? What's the code?
PO62.
PO62. Okay, is it like a non-toxic too? PO. Yeah, no, it's not. None of these. Interesting, because I feel like with these ones I'm familiar. The bismuth and the Hansa yellow. The pyrrole orange. I know the pyrrole red, but not pyrrole orange. But they seem pretty common. But this one seems a little bit more chemical, so I don't know. There's a table. You don't have to do this, but there's a table that lists all the codes for all the pigments, and it gives you a little bit of information. It's not difficult to come up or to find it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it just gives you the code, the names, the origin, and also some qualities about it. I have it saved somewhere, but it's not easy to, it's not difficult to find it. But I just saw your note, Laura. I didn't go. I ended up getting busy with nonsense, and I didn't go to the Norton Simon, and I should have gone because I should have gone, but I didn't, but I will. Thanks for asking. So this is my, go ahead, Jen.
Oh, nothing. I was just laughing. I was just giggling.
Oh,
I do have the etymology of priming, though.
okay. Yes.
So the origin is Latin primus, meaning first. And then it looks like in the early 1600, prime meant to fill or load.
Okay.
Meaning like a weapon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does it say, so before Latin, or was there any word? Did it have any French influence or Italian influence, or it just says that?
Yeah, it looks like it.
Just from Latin.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Cool. Yeah, so it's the imprimatura has the same base, I would say, even the.
Oh well, okay. Now that you say that, there looks like a late 14th century first original, first in order of time from the Old French prime, and directly from Latin primus, first, the first part. So yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
And then the source, or Italian and Spanish, is primo.
Primo.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then there's like prime number, prime meridian, prime time. So yeah.
Cool. Well, that makes sense. I mean, I like this idea of like first.
Mm-hmm.
So first coat, first layer, priming. So essentially, yeah. Thanks for that. I love learning about influences and like orange. Before it was used to name the color, which was used because of the fruit, the word orange didn't exist. People use like other terms like saffron and something else like yellow red, but that word did not exist, and it comes from the fruit. So I love that also. And I was just like cleaning some of the brushes, and I know that this is silly, but I'm so happy that we changed to our citrus solvent, completely natural. So maybe that we're gonna get some synergetic vibrational stuff painting the orange and using the citrus. But if you don't have citrus, that's okay. And I have like a couple of excerpts from the book that I'm gonna read later regarding I have one regarding a conversation we had last week during studio time. And then I have also one regarding the painting surface. And I think it was nice to stumble upon those like elements. Okay, so the imprimatura, I'm done with it. The purpose of the imprimatura is to have like a layer, remove the whiteness, the blankness of the page, seal the charcoal, so create a safer transition from dry to wet. We don't have to follow strict measurements or anything like that, or be accurate or conforming to anything. So I think that was a pretty good way to make a very neutral orange. And now we're jumping from imprimatura to first color notes. And first color notes, so that's like a big jump. And then there are certain things that happen, but mainly two areas. Number one, we start creating a color palette or a color direction. And number two, we are starting to refine some of the edges. So I'm going to use like a medium brush maybe just to study the palette. And I'm just going to open the window because there's too much orange smell in here. Okay, I think that's good. Before I use the orange, I want to find out if I mix the yellow ochre and the burnt sienna, if there is an area where I could use this. And in fact, there is. I'm trying to avoid jumping to saturated colors if I can create a color with what I've got. And I can. So I'm going to darken it with some, this is way too dark. I think that's good. That's perfect. So I'm using a combination of burnt sienna, yellow ochre, and a little bit of the raw umber. And now that I have this, I'm going to use just the oil or the medium. And I'm going to start applying blocks of color. But it was very important for me to start the process of studying the color by creating an orange that felt similar to what I've got without jumping to orange paint. So I'm using a really raggedy messed up brush. And what I'm doing right now is just applying this tone where I think I see it. And I know that that's going to change. But essentially, I'm just going to do it like right here. Yeah, I think so. So I try to avoid similar strokes or directional strokes so it doesn't read like a pattern. So that's why I do like wiggly lines or change the direction and make sure that doesn't feel like too pattern-like. Okay, so I think that was good. The green. So I know that yellow is going to be important in this process. So I think my first color addition to the palette will be bringing yellow. So I think that's important. I'm trying to explore and experiment with a limited palette before I just bring in orange or red. Because we've done this, we've done some studies, color studies before in the tutorials, and we know that we can create really interesting, better and more interesting versions of colors that are unexpected without actually using the straight up orange. So I'm gonna just give it a try. I'm gonna use a little bit of the burnt sienna, this really earthy, reddish, dark, and some Hansa yellow. And I'm gonna see what happens if I can apply it. Oh yeah, if I can apply it somewhere. And I do, and I can. Okay, so I love that it could be applied here. So what I'm gonna do is with this yellow and burnt sienna, which initially when I woke up this morning, I didn't think I was gonna use these two colors to create a version of orange, but that's why I love doing this, because it can give us an opportunity to create a hue that's going to be interesting without, it doesn't mean like I don't want to use orange, not at all. I just want to explore the possibilities, stretch the functionality of the colors that I have before I bring in the color, you know, the actual color. I think also it's a way to encourage my eyes to go beyond the color orange, just go beyond the color. Okay, so maybe in normal circumstances, I would just move on to this area right here that it's really strong. But because I'm kind of like practicing variations with neutrals and yellow, I feel like I want to see what I can get with those combinations and this area right here, just to understand what kind of like color foundation I could use before bringing the actual orange. And there are many shades of orange, not many, but there are quite a few shades of orange out there by different manufacturers. Oh my gosh, this is so freaking gorgeous. So gorgeous. Hansa yellow and a little bit of raw umber. I mean, I'm sorry, burnt sienna. And it makes a wonderful, doesn't look orange on the paper. And I think that's one of the great reasons or great things that happen when we paint or we use paint. The surprise that certain ranges of color can look not really what we're used to recognize as green or blue, but it still is. I would just look at this and I would think, this looks like a really crappy yellow. It looks like a, I don't know, mustardy, a little mustard-like. Doesn't feel like it's orange. But well, guess what? It just fits that color profile right here a little bit. So I'm glad I sort of like jumped from darker to lighter. And I'm gonna jump also to the highlight, the spot, and see if just with the Hansa yellow, it needs white. I'm gonna bring some white right now. I know that it's early in the process and I shouldn't do this, but I wanna find out if very pale yellow, no, it's not colorful enough. Maybe with a little bit of the burnt sienna. Maybe it's not ideal, but I'm gonna block it out. I'm gonna block it out. Sometimes the white may work, but sometimes it may create too much chalkiness and too little color. But in this case, I'm just gonna apply that block. And I think, yeah, I think I'm good with that. So, you know, I'm gonna do something that I shouldn't do, but I'm using a little bit of medium and no paint whatsoever. And I'm just blending those tones. I shouldn't do that at this stage, but all right. So I think, let me just think, actually. Let me just think. Let me think. Before I bring orange, because we have such a beautiful range of reds. So we have the cadmium free and the brown pink. I don't know. I'm gonna bring the brown pink. I'm gonna bring the brown pink. Okay, let's see. So brown pink, you know, it's like a very specific color. It's not very present in people's palettes, but if you want to try, if you have alizarin crimson, I'm going to put it on the palette just in case. And my idea is I'm going to try to achieve or explore possibilities for orange by creating a processed mix of pigments, because we know that the color out of the tube is the highest pigmentation, and we have talked about how important it is to process the pigment as much as possible to give you a very unique color profile. So maybe arriving to orange, not from a straight line, but sort of like a big loop may give us a much more interesting color. So brown, pink, and yellow ochre. Brown pink because it's very reddish, and yellow ochre because it's a version of yellow. And I'm going to see what happens here. It's not too bad, and it's a little bit more brown pink actually. I'm going to go for it. I'm going to go for it. I'm going to go for brown pink and yellow ochre. And I'm just going to use the oil. And I need like a bigger brush. And I'm going for it. I'm going for it. Why am I doing this and not using straight up orange? It's not that it's wrong to use like straight up orange. It's not wrong. It's not wrong. But in regards to creating interesting original hues of color on your painting, sometimes not going through the straight predictable choice, but creating the color by mixing other options can give you a much more interesting approach or result. I'm not trying to match or super match this. And I know that by session 2, like this is a gorgeous orange. It's a gorgeous orange, but there's no orange paint in it. It's yellow ochre and brown pink, which we use for the we brought in, I forgot the reason why we brought it in, but this was the best color to use for the oxen. Such a interesting discovery. Okay, and then what? And then what? So I'm kind of like building different orange tones, but I'm gonna go with this stretch right here and totally exploring and playing with color, if you will. I don't have to memorize anything. I don't have to know anything. I'm just gonna play with color, and I'm gonna do brown pink with the Hansa yellow, just because it's a brighter yellow than yellow ochre. It's absolutely gorgeous, but even I would say it's too bright.
Did you say you're doing brown pink with Hansa?
Yes. It's gorgeous. I'm so happy right now. Look at this gorgeous orange, brown. If you are just using straight up cadmium orange, if you have it, that's fine. Don't feel like you're not following whatever. But I'm trying to propose the idea of learning about color and at the same time processing our paints much more than just the color straight up the tube, straight out of the tube. So Hansa yellow and brown paint, and they make a beautiful orange together. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. I think that's beautiful. I would definitely be able to do the same hues using orange paint. I'm not saying that this is the only way to achieve orange. If I bring orange right now, orange paint, I would probably be able to do all of this. But maybe not. It's not as fun. And as we know, we're going to see this image in a few days next time. And we were going to be like, oh my gosh, none of the colors that I thought I was creating that were appropriate or that would follow the same direction actually do that. You know, what was I thinking? And I think that's something that it's important to recognize that our recognition of color changes. It doesn't just become, okay, that's orange. It may be one orange today, but it's not going to be the same orange in 2 hours or an hour and a half or in 1 hour actually. And in 1 week, it's just going to be so different. And that's what I love about the whole process. All right, so Jen, any chance that you got to scan through that article maybe and see something, or?
Yeah, let me pull it back up. So, yeah, it was.
It's okay.
It felt like it had a lot of different answers. Like everything you said was correct. Okay, great. Now I can't open.
Yeah, it's.
All right, open link. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So. Okay. So. It says long before citrus became a viable commercial crop for Wolfskill, this guy that is known as the granddaddy of California citrus. Long before him, it says Spanish missionaries who settled in Southern California during the 1700s were already cultivating a variety of citrus fruit, believed to have originated from the Southeast China thousands of years ago. But then it also says that this guy, Wolfskill, grew hundreds of lemons and oranges seedlings, which he secured from San Gabriel Mission, which I guess that connection makes sense. Navel orange. Yeah, so I guess, okay. So, sorry.
Yeah, no, it's.
It's a lot of information, yeah.
Confusing, no.
Yeah, exactly. So he grew all these things, which he secured, like I said, from San Gabriel Mission. And while his early successes showed that there was at least a regional market for citrus, it wasn't until the introduction of the navel orange in the 1870s that propelled the growth of California citrus, which fueled the economic and social development of California. Because it resembled a belly button, the navel orange was far superior to other varieties at the time because it was seedless, sweet, and ripened in winter under California's Mediterranean climate. But this is interesting. The fruit was actually a mutation from an orange tree that grew in a Brazilian monastery.
Wow.
U.S. Department of Agriculture obtained cuttings from this tree and in 1873 sent 2 or 3 starter trees to spiritualist and women suffrage activist Eliza Tibbets in Riverside to see if they would grow. I mean, what?
Wait, what? Can you repeat that? Wait.
Okay. So we're talking about navel oranges, and it says the fruit was actually a mutation from an orange tree that grew in a Brazilian monastery.
Okay.
The U.S. Department of Agriculture obtained cuttings from this tree and in 1873 sent 2 or 3 starter trees to spiritual and woman suffrage activist Eliza Tibbets in Riverside to see if they would grow.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, how random.
Wow.
The US government and the women's suffrage movement working together, that doesn't feel correct.
So this is fascinating. So they just send them seeds for them to grow?
So they sent like little trees, I want to say.
Trees.
Yeah. Because he said 2 or 3 starter trees.
And sort of like as, okay, take this, you grow it and see whatever happens.
Yeah. And it says Riverside became the fulcrum of the development of that big market of navel. How funny that we've never heard this woman's name.
What I was gonna say, where's the credit here?
Exactly. And it says that navel also changed how farmers produce citrus and other fruit trees. Prior to the navel, citrus was grown mostly from seed, which meant the trees retained their biological diversity, bearing a hodgepodge of fruit that lacked standardization. Because the seedless navel has no way to reproduce naturally, growers must assist Mother Nature by grafting bud sports to another tree trunk or roots, a process that creates a clone of the original.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. I think that's the part when, you know, you really need to know what you're doing if you're growing oranges, because it's not kind of like put a seed and then it's gonna happen.
Can we just talk also about the irony of it being called the navel orange when like it's essentially made in science? You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
The belly button. Our whole thing as a human of like that we were connected to another person, and anyway, kind of wild. Yeah. Okay. So today, nearly all the navel orange trees grown in the state are descendants of the Tibbet original trees.
Wow.
Those trees, now 137 years old, still stands and bears fruit in Riverside. Okay, Julio, this is what we got to do. And has been designated as California's historic landmark.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Please go down that rabbit hole right now.
Yeah. I mean, we can definitely get to Riverside.
Yeah.
Riverside remained the center of the navel orange business, which soared in the 1880s. The whole nation wanted California navel oranges. And with the establishment of the Transcontinental Railroad, growers were able to supply them. Okay, I think we're going to see this in the Gilded Age on HBO. Hold on to your. Yeah, so this citrus boom spurred California's second gold rush. Only the new gold was orange.
Wow.
And then in 1893, Sunkist developed.
So to go back, sorry, I'm a little slow, but to go back, original, some of the trees that were given to the suffragettes to grow are still there. They're still alive.
They're all descendants of that original.
They're descendants.
And but there's one that is still there.
Okay.
And
can we find out where it is?
Yeah.
Because that's pretty amazing. This is the history of California.
It really is.
It's talked or told through the point of view of like a fruit tree.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
So today, California's citrus sector, valued more than 1 billion annually, ranks second in the US after Florida, which produces the most Valencia oranges.
Valencia, yeah.
Are the seeded oranges used mostly for orange juice? I guess that's why. California is number one in the fresh market oranges, mostly notably the navel, but also produces a significant share of the nation's lemons, grapefruit, and tangerine.
Right.
And it takes a lot of water to grow fruit, right?
Well, I think everyone
Must
talks.
not.
I'm not sure. I think everyone talks about the almond being the
Right.
harvest that takes the most, but I don't know like how oranges rate in regards of like how much water they need.
Right. I mean, if it was able to thrive here, it
Right.
must not. And then I see people with orange trees in their backyard, and of course, lemon trees are everywhere. And I don't think anyone's out there with a, watering those things. I think it's just like let live, be free, let live, and they somehow produce fruit. Although I know that there are obviously years where the drought has.
Right. Yeah, that's gonna affect. Yeah, that's true.
Okay, so let's find this tree. I will post it if I can find
Okay.
it.
Well, that's fascinating, Jen. Thanks so much.
Sure.
We have to go there, wherever it is. We're gonna paint a lot of orange trees in the next few weeks. So in the meantime, I'm just gonna I'm still with first color notes. First color notes. I did this sort of like a mini study of orange on the big circle, exploring possible ways to get to the hue without actually using orange paint, and relying on yellow ochre as a neutral version of yellow, and then variations of browns. And the pink brown or the brown pink, I always get brown pink. I thought it could have been a good option, just because it doesn't have it doesn't have blue in it, or it doesn't read like blue. Whether the alizarin crimson, it has a tendency to have some purple cast, I would say, but Indian red or brown pink, I don't have Indian red, but that could be a good option to build orange hues without using orange paint. And what I've been doing at the same time, now that it's covered, I probably should have done the green right here, but I wanted to start building opacity on the peripheral areas, because this color, it's fascinating. It's very interesting. You would think, well, this is just white, but it's not really white. It has a blue and ecru mixed in, and then it has a shade of pink here, which I'm assuming it's the color bouncing on the surface on this area. Although this is an image that I downloaded, and who the heck knows what kind of like true colors this actually has. And not only that, but I use a printer on Kinko's with a toner that who knows what kind of like chemical was in there. So it couldn't be any more processed. Even with that process, I could see wonderful variations. I'm going to go for it. And also in the cast shadows, I'm trying to kind of like build these pieces, rebuilding the edges, making some changes on the roundness of the orange. Time-wise, I think we're good. I'm going to continue doing this until 30 minutes before the session ends. We're going to end 5 minutes after the second hour. But I feel like I need to build the opacity here to advance the stage, because sometimes leaving things too underdeveloped makes the painting look less advanced. So that's what I'm doing right now, working on peripheral areas. I'm using a lot of oil or medium, whichever medium or oil you're using. We talked about, we had a great conversation the other day about using different kinds, and and using this or that, or changing or not changing. So in fact, I'm just going to bring a note from the book. I'm going to finish this. I love the little vignette here. So maybe I'm just going to bring that vignette, but I'm liking what's happening. I think I'm good with what's going on so far. So the combination of oils and I don't know why, maybe it's because it's the bottom of the bottle, but it gets a little thick. I noticed it on Tuesday, Jen, when I was painting, and I feel like it's because the oils at the bottom of the bottle were a little bit thicker. So I'm adding a little bit of turpentine, not turpentine, solvent. I should use the word solvent, not turpentine. So, oh my gosh. Here, I'm gonna go for it because you guys are gonna laugh. I hope. I get a catalog of a convention. So my dad was diagnosed with cancer 20 years ago, and then I started going to conferences to learn about things and learn about treatments and listen to doctors and practitioners. And, you know, at that point, I wanted to get information from everyone. So I don't know, I never attended this conference ever before, but I guess my contact information got passed from these alternative therapy conferences to the Los Angeles Conscious Life Expo, which is a bunch of like weird people talking about UFOs and stuff like that. I browsed, I confess, I browsed because I just find it like a world news of the world, a newspaper on the newsstands that I love to look at when I would wait in line to pay for groceries. At some point, that was so exciting. So there is, I promise it has to do with painting. I'm not gonna say anything that's gonna make you feel I need some assistance. There is one speaker, I will find out, because that the theme of the talk is the properties, the positive properties of terpenes. Terpenes. So a terpene is the extract of a natural substance that's used as a solvent, essentially. The word turpentine has to do with the idea of that becoming a terpene, turpentine and terpene. So it's an extraction of a natural substance. I will find it, and I could just do this. Yes. Adriana Mezgova is going to talk today between 5 and 5:45 about the healing properties of terpenes. And so terpenes, you can get the terpenes, essential oils are terpenes, but also from herbs and fruits and vegetables. Why am I saying this? I'm kind of like a complete tangent, because the solvent we're using, the citrus solvent, it's a natural terpene. In fact, it's not mineral based, it's an extracted substance from a natural. And I thought, wouldn't it be amazing that not only we are using something non-toxic, but perhaps something that can have beneficial attributes by using it. And going back to the orange, sorry, I just wanted to tie together the orange, the citrus, the solvent, and this little bit of information that I saw on this catalog of people gathering today and talking about stuff. Way out there stuff. All right, so I think I'm done with this like 30 minutes. I mean, I'm sorry, with no, I have 5 minutes left. So I'm gonna bring some orange. I mean, I'm sorry, some pink and white. And bring some light orange right here to create a contrast on the other side. So I'm looking at the light direction. Obviously, it's very clear. It's very clear because I have a point that has a highlight and it has a counterpoint that has the cast shadow. So if I sort of like connect both the highlight and the shadow, by continuation, I can find out where the light direction is, which is from this point. At the same time, looking at the background, and that's something that I feel like with Lois, you gave us an opportunity to kind of like talk a little bit about it during studio time. The background of this painting is going to be as important, if not more important, than the actual subject. So put as much attention and focus on the background as you would put on the actual color of the orange or whatever slice or anything. So I'm going to create a much lighter version on that side to create a sense of light and perspective, and leave this a little bit darker. And finally, I think this would be my last few minutes before the final half hour, because I'm going to jump to second color nodes then, and maybe that's going to be the time when I'm going to introduce the actual orange paint. But I'm going to create a green, a botanical green, using the Hansa yellow and the chromatic black. And we know how gorgeous and different that green is. Yes, it's beautiful. So I'm going to make it darker with chromatic black. Okay, perfect. And then I'll just give that complementary note on that area. And because of the quality of the photograph, I love the fact that it's very fuzzy on that section. I mean, you cannot tell the difference between that much, the difference between the edge of the green and the orange. So what I'm going to do is immediately after doing this, I don't want this to be too harsh. I am going to blend those edges. I just want to have more of integration between the outside or the edges and the skin of the orange, because you know it takes too much attention. I think I need to bring orange inside. It's way too green right now. It's way too green. So I think I'm gonna actually work on that on my second color notes, because this needs to be really processed. Okay, so this would be my personal conclusion of first color notes. Remember that I said, or we mentioned, that first color notes have two main functions. One is to rebuild the edges or work on the edges or get the opportunity to relocate certain edges on our drawing. So it has or it provides the opportunity to work with the drawing aspect of the painting. And the second one is when we start opening the chapter to creating our own color palette. So we start refining or processing the raw material and finding color directions, formulas, experimenting with the paint in order to create our first unique colors for the palette. So two main functions. And I think I just completed that. And on that note, before I move forward, if I can find, yes, I'm just gonna read something regarding the usage of mediums and oils and stuff like that first, because I read it the other day on the book. I'm just savoring this book. It's just so amazing. And I just found something that's really good. So yeah, I'll be super quick, but yeah, whatever else paint is, it is the patient supervision of oil as it dries. And that is why painters have always been so concerned about how different media dry. Whether poppy seed oil dries better than linseed oil, whether pine oils or sunflower oils might be used instead, it can take an expert eye to judge the differences. I have been told hazelnut oil is the best for tempera paint, but so far I have failed to see its distinctive properties. The endless combinations of balsams and turpentines, soft resins such as mastic, damar, shellac, and sandorak, hard resins such as copal and amber, waxes, tallows, oils of cloves, lavender, rosemary, elemi, which I have no idea what it is, kajaput, camphor. They are all meant to fine-tune the manner in which the oil paint dries. Ideally, it should not wrinkle, shrink, or discolor, and it should remain viscid long enough to be worked, but not so long that the painting cannot be packaged and sold. And when I read that, kind of like remember the little conversation we had during studio time about changing or experimenting or adding or moving from one oil to the medium to the next. But I feel like this sort of like encapsulates the premise of having so many options, but giving you a bottom line. As long as it doesn't wrinkle or discolor, it's up to us to find that medium or that carrier that may be better suited for something specifically. And in fact, to be even more precise, it goes on to say after this whole paragraph, acrylics could only be successful in the 20th century when painters are more likely to be impatient. In past centuries, acrylic would have seemed too dry, to dry far too quickly. So yeah, going back to using, we talked about using gall kit or not using gall kit, and how that could affect the process or the dryness. And so I'm gonna go to second color notes, and I'm just gonna move to the smaller or the medium brush, and I'm gonna go back. I think because this area is so dark, I think I'm gonna go to this right now. I'm gonna go to this area right now, and I'm gonna find out if there's a way to start making orange that has a green cast. So I think that's the interesting part about the different areas or the different hues. And I'm not gonna do the texture of the skin yet, just because I feel like I have a better chance exploring the variations of color before putting there the little dots or things on the skin. Okay, so I'm trying to just bring. Oh, and by the way, second color notes, what does it mean? It means that the most important thing is that I'm gonna pick one area to work on. So I went from darker to lighter, try to keep a structure throughout the entire process. But right now, I'm going to pick an area based on what I want to work on, essentially, or the area that I want to develop the most. So I'm going to concentrate on this area right now and create variations. So it doesn't mean like I have to go back to darker to lighter. Right now, I'm just adding variations within that area that I picked. My brushstrokes are shorter and calmer. I think that's going well. I think that's going well. I feel like that green is too, and this is a good example of how green and orange may clash, and it might create like a wonderful sparkly illusion, or it may just be too predictable. And I'm going to go for something a little more subdued. And I'm going to do it by bringing some orange inside of that green. I'm going to bring some orange. And I need to bring some darker green. We also, it was very good also last week when we talked about the wetness of our layers should not be a factor that it's, I mean, I know it happens, but let me just sort of like explain. The wetness of the paint should not be a factor that deter us to continue working on the painting. It's easier said than done, because sometimes we build so much oil and liquid that it feels nothing can stick on it. But more than seeing that as a way of like, you know, okay, I need to stop right now. See it as an opportunity to slow down the addition of liquid next time you work on that painting. Because certainly I feel like it's a way for the painting to inform us that we have built up too much oil too quickly. And perhaps next time we should sort of like restrain the application of oil or paint, so we can extend the time that we could work on that painting. But if you hit a wall, and that wall, or the point where you hit that wall where you feel like it's very hard to work on that painting any further because it's really wet, my advice would be to just, yeah, stop. But at the same time, think next time, how can you move that wall a little further away from the starting point? How can you extend the time that you can work on the layers of your painting? And I feel like that's a process that would take a little bit of time to transition to, but ultimately we should be able to work on the painting for as long as possible. And in regards to the time that we allocate to these webinars, and based on what I see other painters using, or the time that they use to paint in their studio, 2 hours should not be the time when we hit the wall in which the painting is too wet to continue. And this was a really open and frank conversation. I'm not pointing to the fact that we're doing something wrong, or I'm just saying that it's good to be aware of it and maybe work towards not adding as much paint or oil or liquid, and stretching that time before we feel it's impossible to add something a little bit further and further and further. So we could be working very confidently within 2 hours. And if we were to work for 5 hours, which I think it's a decent amount of time, we should be able to be working on a 5-hour stretch without feeling that pushback from the paint. Doesn't mean like we could work 5 hours on this. If I work 5 hours on this 2 square inches, I'm gonna quit painting. But we should organize a strategy in which we could work a stretch of time on one area and always find other areas that allow you to continue working. Oh my gosh, why am I talking so much? Okay. Jen.
Yes.
What have you found? Trees, monuments? Is there a monument?
Oh yeah, sorry. I was like, oh no, what was I supposed to be looking at?
No.
Yes, it's all on our photos.
Oh yeah.
Yes, but it's cute. It's like a it's like a little monument. It there's a picture. So I found it in Wikipedia. And yeah, there's like a little plaque and
Is it a public place?
yeah, it even gives a location, corner of Magnolia and Arlington Streets in Riverside. The parent Washington navel orange tree is a tree grown by Eliza Tibbets in Riverside, California in 1873. The Riverside County tree was designated as a California Historic Landmark on June 1st, 1932, on the corner of Magnolia Street in Arlington.
Nobody knows this.
I know. The Bahia, Brazil, Washington navel orange was brought to the United States by the U.S. Department of Agriculture in 1870. Department of Agriculture.
I'm sorry, 18 what?
1870.
Wow.
The Department of Agriculture imported 12 trees, and from these trees, some buds were grafted onto the California sweet orange trees. The Washington navel orange is also called the California navel orange.
I mean, I'm going to interrupt you right now.
Yeah.
The Impressionists did not even show their pieces in the salon at the time.
Huh. Right.
Anyhow.
That's it. But yeah.
And I'm sorry, I just mean sometimes we have like different time things for California or US and Europe. We always feel like Europe goes first and then, but this is all like interesting story.
They think they just thought the orange was super commonplace, or that citrus was, or
I don't know. It would be interesting to, there were a lot of like technological advances that happened in Europe at the turn of the century, and we always kind of like focus on Europe, but I feel like this was a major thing. Maybe they just had oranges there and they didn't care, but I just tried to find the perspective of time-wise what we could compare this to.
Man, if you could go back to 1870 California, Julio,
oh my God,
what would you do?
I don't know. It seems like a scary time.
Oh,
I would just lock myself behind.
Well, that's true. Definitely scary times.
But I'm pretty sure. Say that again?
Especially out west, yeah.
Right. But speaking of the Gilded Age, I'm pretty sure this had a pretty fantastic, maybe not the same density, but a lot of pioneers, and by pioneers, I shouldn't use that word, but a lot of like wealthy people came here at the same time. New York City was building, but that doesn't mean, I mean, all these branches and properties and people having like massive amounts of money, they were before the turn of the century here in California.
Right. Yeah, I think it was Mulholland that created a way for water to be introduced into the city of Los Angeles, and that was probably the missing piece of it all, right? Because it was a desert.
Right.
And let's see what year he did that. Yeah, and then it was like Falls Fair.
Yeah, no, very interesting. I don't know what I would do, but I don't know. That's an interesting question. I don't know.
Yeah, William Mulholland, Irish
Mhm.
American self-taught civil engineer who was responsible for building the infrastructure to provide a water supply that allowed Los Angeles to grow into the largest city in California.
Wow.
And that was in, well, it doesn't really say when that happened. Oh, at Los Angeles Aqueduct. Um, yeah, it was about that time. He worked with the mayor of LA, Frederick Eaton, from 1898 through 1900. They worked together in the private Los Angeles Water Company in the 1880s. Yeah, it was right around, okay, from 1907 to 1913, Mulholland directed the building of the aqueduct. And so I guess it was very early 1900s that all happened.
Interesting.
Oh, a few enclaves remain, such as the groves of the Orcutt Ranch Park.
Wait, what?
Okay, it says the water from Mulholland's aqueduct also shifted farming from wheat to irrigated crops, such as corn, beans, squash, and cotton. Orchards of apricots, persimmons, and walnuts, and major citrus groves of oranges and lemons. These continued within the city environs until the next increment of development converted land use into suburbanization. A few enclaves remain, such as the groves at Orcutt Ranch Park
Boom.
and CSUN campus.
Okay.
This is the
Oh,
Northridge one
the
you were talking
Northridge.
about.
That's right.
Mhm.
Wow. Okay. Well, thanks for stitching the whole story together, Jen.
There you go.
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant way of like connecting the dots and recognizing a really important part of LA history and California history
Right.
that's still there.
And it's still a big deal. I mean, still we're, fighting over water and trying to get water. And I mean, water's such still a big part
Yep.
of our city and
Yep.
state.
Yep.
Ay, ay, ay. Will it ever end?
Yeah. So I've been kind of like working on the green area right here. It's kind of like purposely trying to modify it in a way that feels like it's building without repainting too much or creating too many layers. And I'm using the same brush, but with different pressures on it. I'm also using the rag in order to avoid creating edges that are too hard. And yeah, and at the same time, I'm expanding my strokes and doing a combination of doing the shadow, the counter highlight on the other side, and pixelating the brush strokes in a way that starts creating the idea of the skin of the orange. So I also try to be a little bit creative in the sense that I'm not sticking or trying to be too photographic. And maybe this could be a good time, almost 2 hours in, it could be a good time to bring finally orange paint and see where this could work. Okay, so that's going to be another exploration. I wouldn't want to conclude this session. We still have time without really finding out where would that orange go if it were sort of like applied or out of the tube. Well, it's too light for what I thought it was going to go. So I put the orange on the palette, and then immediately my mind said, this must go to the most orange part of the shape. And I went to this area and it's way too light for this. It's way too light. So yeah, I found the area where this orange could go, and it's more of a highlight. So it's more like right here. So I'm gonna bring some, I'm not gonna apply it like too much, just because I know it's a little, it's concentrated in a little area. Sort of like right here. Maybe this could have a little bit of that grouping. Okay, I think that's very good. Yeah, I think that's very good. Maybe on the upper part could also have, and I'm gonna change the shape because I feel like it's too flat from the top. Now that I build the side and the counter highlight and stuff like that, I wanna alter a little bit the shape and give more of a rounder effect on top. I think that's totally working. So yeah, I'm really happy to have learned or to have taken the time to explore different ways of getting to orange, because now I have a different perspective on the orange that I applied. Rather than just using it straight up, I would have painted this orange and I would have not gotten the intensity and richness of color that I got using other tones. So I'm glad I used it too early. I'm doing more of a pixelated approach. And one of the images that I wasn't able to share yesterday, it was a pointillistic approach. I don't know why that photo didn't make it. Louis Hayet. I'm going to share it right now and show you the creative approach to the orange. He was a pointillist artist, but you could see here there are different oranges that he created the effect by using pointillism. And my point is that on the orange surface, you could see variations of orange, warmer and more yellow, but at the same time, you see variations of green. And I think that could be a third color note that I'm not going to get to, because there's definitely some green at the bottom of the orange. But yeah, just wanted to share that. And all right, so I'm going to continue, and I love the way the color scale has worked for this particular painting. But there's an area that I feel I want to touch before, or as I start to unwind. And it's this separation right here. Because I feel like the separation between the lighter part of the orange and the background, it's much softer. There's no gap, there's no darkness. And I feel like creatively, I don't care about the dots on the highlight right now. I feel like I want to soften this. I want to leave this gap a little bit darker on this area, because I feel like creatively, artistically, or aesthetically, I should use the word aesthetically, this works well, but it's too even. I have it here, I have it here, and I have it here. So I want to break up that evenness, leave this painterly effect here. But when it comes to that area, let's see if I can remember what I used. Just Hansa yellow and yellow ochre. I'm gonna create a softer, more diffused edge, maybe. Bringing some orange paint, actually. Oh yeah, huge, huge change already. Huge change removing that. In fact, just gonna not only enhance that, but I'm actually going to uh, go beyond that and soften that edge. I'm gonna okay. I earned my 2 cents today. So this totally creates the illusion of the orange continuing on the other side. And I didn't have to do these all around. I could keep this area right here, this gap, this border, this separation between sections right there. But here I took the liberty, I think that could be a better way to articulate it, to be a tad more artistic in reinterpreting that edge as something that goes beyond a line that separates. And sometimes we need to sort of like do a combination. We cannot be too literal. Sometimes we, not always, but we could use a pinch of intuition and a sense of adventure and combine it in a way that goes beyond the literal. And I'm not saying it works all the time, but sometimes it may give you much more powerful, effective results. And to me, this totally did it. What would have been more logical for me to do? To do the dots on the skin right here, or to kind of like fade the edge? So immediately I would say, no, the more detail we add, the better this painting is going to look like. Well, not necessarily. In this case, I feel like I achieved much more overall effect on the painting by fading this edge right here than doing whatever detail needed to be done right here. I'm gonna actually, I think I'm at a point where I don't want to continue working because I feel like it has such a beautiful effect, right now. So maybe what I'm gonna do is just work with some pointillistic approaches to the skin right here, and maybe just creating some extra warm. I'm gonna bring orange and brown pink and create a much warmer, some of the crevices right here and the dots, they definitely contain much more warmth. So this could be a good approach as well. Absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm using orange paint right now, but not necessarily straight up from the tube. I'm mixing it with brown pink. And I have to squint my eyes because I'm going to use the old hairy guy. Not that I want to soften this way too much, because I love this orange peel look. But I feel like I could use the bristles. Notice that I'm using more of a perpendicular approach, and I am creating a softer blending between some of the areas, not everywhere, because I want to maintain the brushstroke effect. But in some spots, oh yeah. I need to do, now I realize this needs to be worked on big time, big time. Okay, so maybe, yeah, I have 5 minutes. I think I'm gonna work on the shadow right here. There needs to be, actually, I don't mind. I'm actually gonna do a little bit of that combination of the intuition and adventure that I kind of like gave me such great results, and apply something similar here. I'm going to bring some orange pigment, almost applied as a dry brush, to the bottom of this area right here. The photo doesn't have it, but I just feel like I need to bring some white maybe on the other side. I just feel like that's gonna give me some light interest here. And blending with just the bristles. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it. I don't know how I feel about it. But maybe this could be opened up also. There's a little bit of a diffusion on the edges right here. I'm gonna go for it. We'll see. I'm getting too confident right now. But yeah, this is not as clear. So I think I'm doing the right thing by piercing. I'm piercing this area right here. It needs to be rounder. And creating more of a vague approach. Yeah, I think so. Oh yeah, oh yeah. So something a little less defined. Maybe here I need to recognize that this is a piece that could be blended a tad more. But absolutely thrilled about this expansion of orange right here. I feel like this could now have a little bit more work. So it's always like that. You close one door and then you realize you left one window open. Well, let's work on it. Yeah, let's work on it. I'm gonna work on this and make it rounder. I feel like this needs to have a rounder edge or shape, rather, a rounder shape. Yeah, I think so. I think so. It's coming along. Yeah, there's a slight lighter value that comes from the other side of the orange. So I'm going to bring some light in here. This was too solid. It looked like the orange was flat at the bottom. And let's not forget, in my case, the point of contact is one single point. The light should come from around. Yeah, let's do that. Oh, yeah. Oh, my goodness. Absolutely. Wow. Okay. I'm so proud of myself. What an incredible subject to paint. I've learned so much. I feel like I was able to formulate some flips that I've never tried before. I'm so appreciative to choosing this image and exploring possibilities. Wow. I feel like this surprised me more than the glass of water, because it felt like the glass of water was an exercise in creating a fanciful illusion. But this was a calmer subject. Orange, orange, to paint an orange fruit, you know, what's the excitement here? No transparencies, no refracting light. I got more out of this than last week. So we're gonna, thanks Jen for these amazing discoveries. I just cannot wait to go see this tree. And I hope you got some phone numbers or directions. And I also hope it's not like the largest bougainvillea in the entire US. I went there and it was half dead, unfortunately. And it was really a hard situation to paint because it was like a street and it would have been a little bit difficult, maybe for the next Bougainvillea season. But
And it was half dead.
yeah, there were two. Yeah, climate change, you know, it's just affecting everything, I guess. I don't know. But I think I'm gonna go earlier this summer, and maybe we're just gonna knock on some doors, because that's the problem. Oh, thanks, Lois. Okay, so all right, I'm gonna stop, and then 10 minutes, 1:15, we'll reconvene. Stretch number one, stretch. Drink number two, and then whatever your body tells you it needs to do. And also take a photo of the progress if you'd like to, so we can exchange experiences, and also take a photo of the setup. So we can, we love to share with others. So take a photo of your setup. It doesn't matter that you've done it before, but or your palette. You know, I love my palette today. It's like a beautiful combination of different shades of orange. So that could work also. All right, stopping right now, and we'll see you in 10 minutes.